In this video, we're going to be building this oak bench. It's 5 feet long and 24 inches wide, and it's really deep for a bench. This could easily be a coffee table, but it's the size our customer ordered, so that's what we made. It's a very easy build. It looks very cool, and I think just about anybody could make this. So let's get started. So I built this bench out of oak 4x4s, and I actually found these on Facebook Marketplace. They were shipping parts. They had them in between big water pipes, and after they got the water pipes where they needed to go, they were just going to throw these away. And some guy there collected them up and put them on Facebook Marketplace. I paid a couple dollars each for them. I bought everything he had. Loaded my trailer up. I have a 14-foot trailer, and it was overflowing with them. So I've had these stored in my warehouse for a couple of years, and we use them every now and again for different things. We use them for legs on tables, etc. Obviously, they're going to have some nail holes in them, but depending on what you're doing with them, that just adds character to the project. Sometimes we leave the rough sawn look, depending on what we're doing. In this case, I'm going to mill them all down, but before I get into any of that, I've got to get these big blocks off of them. And obviously, this was the least fun part of the whole project, getting these blocks off. Doesn't look too bad in fast motion, but I had to do 8 of these, and getting all those off was a huge pain. I actually broke the top of my workbench here doing this, and it was just a particle board top with that melamine cover over the top of it, so not a huge deal. But yeah, we're gonna have to fix the workbench top now. And these chunks, we have so many big projects we've got to do that I hate throwing away pieces of wood like that. But if I keep them all around the store or around the shop, then we just get overwhelmed with pieces, and I end up throwing them away anyway. So chunks like that I offer to friends in the area, but after that, if there's no takers, they end up going in the trash. So here I'm cutting these down to rough length. They're going to end up being 60 inches. It's a 5-foot wide bench, and right now I'm cutting them to 61 because I'm going to be milling them. I'm going to be running them all through the joiner and the planer, and that's going to change the shape of them a little bit, and then we'll come back through the miter saw one more time and square up the ends after the 4x4s themselves are all squared up. And I end up using most of the 4x4. After I cut the long piece, I was able to use the cutoff and cut them down for the legs. As you can see, there's still another part there that I didn't use, but the majority of it I got used. It ended up being 7 4x4s wide, which would be perfect for a coffee table. It's a little wide, I think, for a bench, but that's what our customer asked for, so that's what we did. Here I'm showing an example. This is probably the worst one of the bunch. You can see that that huge gap there in the middle, and this is where a joiner and a planer just come in so handy, is be able to take a piece of wood like that and get it to a usable shape. So I got that side almost flat. That very middle part, I didn't want to take it on down because it would have ended up being too small, and that I will hide on the inside so you won't really ever see it. But once you get that first side flat, I put it up against the fence and hold that flat to the fence, and then I get the second side squared up and flat, running it over the joiner. So now I've got 2 flat sides, and they're also square to each other. And I'm not going to show all the pieces, but obviously there's 7 long 4x4s that had to go through the joiner, and 14 short ones. I was able to get 7 of them, obviously off the cut-offs of these. I had a few pieces left over from other projects that I used, and then I also got another 4x4 and cut it down. And between all of those, I was able to get enough pieces for the legs. So we're going to get these all through the joiner here, then we'll move over to the planer and go from there. So now I've got two sides flat and square on the joiner, and we're going to start running them through the planer. And since we're making a square piece, we're going to run both sides through the planer and then move on to the next piece. So that side goes through, that side goes through. And at the beginning, when you've got such rough pieces like this, there's going to be high spots and low spots, and obviously you've got to start at your highest spot. So it's a pain in the butt when you first get started with pieces like this, because a lot of them you're running through and they're not even really touching. It's not doing anything, but you don't know that until you run them through. So you got to get them all down to to the same size. And now I'm getting down there where they're all biting, where it's making cuts on all of them. Last few passes through the planer, and finally done getting all these milled up. I've always thought it was so cool to be able to take a piece of wood that is crooked and not really usable, and to be able to run it through these tools and get good straight lumber out of it. It's cool to do that. So here I'm looking at my pieces and picking out which ones are going to face which direction. I'm trying to hide as many of the nail holes as I can. And the low spots I was talking about before, I'm hiding those as well, facing them down to the bottom. I'm doing the same thing with the legs here. Any bad spots I'm going to face in, so you don't really see those. And obviously some that are really bad, I'm going to put on because these legs, 7 of them are going to be 17.5 inches long, and then 7 of them are going to be 3.5 or 4 inches shorter than that, whatever these ended up being. So the really bad ones, I'm using for the shorter legs, because 4 of them are going to set against the end of the long ones, and then 7 of them are going to set against the ends of the long ones, and 7 of them are going to sit on the top of them. So I'm getting my long ones lined up here first, and first I'm just going to lay everything out and make sure I'm happy with everything. And then I'm going to start gluing it up. And instead of measuring, I'm just going to use the piece themselves. It's the selves to to make sure, or to make my mark, to cut my short ones. Double check it against several of the other legs to make sure I'm happy with that mark, and then start cutting the shorter ones. All right, I have another guy that works in the shop with me, James, but he works Monday through Friday, and I work on Saturday also, because our store is open on Saturday, and my wood shop is attached to the store. So I recruited my wife to come in and help me with this glue up, because obviously this is a lot to get glued up at the same time. And this is the one thing I would change on this project, that the next time I do this, I'm going to do it differently. I'm going to attach each leg to each layer separately, and I'm going to do that with dowels, and I'm going to clamp them up and let them dry up, and then so I'll have 7 U's, or however many, however wide I'm going to go. I'll have 7 U's, and after that's dried up, then I'll come back one more time and I'll clamp those 7 U's together, if that makes sense, instead of trying to do it all at once like this. We ended up with a few gaps here and there. It still looked fine. My customer was very happy with it. I was happy with it when it was done, but it could have been better. And and that would have made the difference if I would have done this in two parts instead of trying to do it all at once. And this is what I'm talking about. It was just a huge pain trying to get all this lined up all at the same time before my glue got dry. We did a good job, but it could have been better. After I get it out of clamps, I'll take my track saw and flatten my legs because my glue up was not perfect. A few of those ended up being longer than the other ones, just because they were sitting in the wrong place as the glue dried. I didn't get everything lined up perfectly in this part. Really too much to glue up all at the same time. I'm rushing around trying to get everything lined up, and we got it done, and it came out great, but it could have been better. This is probably one of the most useful tools in the shop, is this big 4x24 sander. It really cleans up tabletops and gets places that aren't perfectly glued up fairly flat. Definitely one of the all-stars in the shop. So now I'm just using a square to line up my my track saw with the top of the table, and I'm going to make a real shallow pass across the bottom of the legs here and just clean everything up. And as you can see, my blade does not go all the way through. I'm going to have to come back with a router and clean up the other side of that, which is what I'm doing right here. And I'm going to go ahead and tell you this. If you don't know, I hope I'm sure most of you probably do, but most big routers like this will run two different size bits. They run a 1/4 inch shank, and then the next size up is a 1/2 inch shank, I believe. And they come with two different collets to do that. So I was switching from my 1/4 inch collet to my 1/2 inch collet for this bit, and that's what I'm doing right here. So there's the smaller one for the smaller one, and the bigger one's on there for the bigger one. And I use a router all the time, and I always end up starting off going the wrong direction. And as soon as it bites, you're going the wrong way because it starts pulling away from you. So I came back down to the other end here. And ran it from the other direction. And when I get down to the end of this cut, I don't want to come all the way out the end of the cut because it'll blow out the grain on the end. So I stop just before I get to it, and I come back to myself. But doing that, it does just what I was talking about a minute. You see that right there? It jumped back at me. You got to be. Routers are amazing tools, but man, you got to be careful with them. They'll bite you. So. Gonna make one more pass and get this thing cleaned up. And then I'm gonna come back with a small round over and just put a small round over on the whole thing. And this bench is going to be outside on our customer's porch. It's a covered porch, but it's still going to be out in the changing temperatures, and we'll see some sun and I'm sure some rain, even though it is covered. So we're trying something here. This is the first time I've ever done the Shushugiban, or however you pronounce that. But I'm going to burn this oak. And then I'm going to put 2 coats of teak oil on it, which is an outdoor it's good for outdoor furniture. So I'm gonna get this whole thing burned. We take it back in the shop. I sanded it, and honestly was not happy with the burn. I felt like I needed to burn it some more, so brought it back out, burned it again, and then sanded it and got the teak oil on it. And that's so here's the first sanding, and as I was getting that char off, it just was too light. My customer was wanting a darker color, so I brought it back out, burned it a second time. And after I sanded it, it still comes out fairly light, not as light as it did the first time, but after the teak oil really darkens it up. So it came out looking great at the end, but took a little work to get there. We always I like to put these feet on almost all of our projects. They keep the wood up off the ground, which especially in this case is very necessary, because the porch it's sitting on could get wet, and that just keeps the wood up out of the wetness. They end up being a 1/2 inch. But the other great thing about it is if your project isn't perfectly flat, or the ground it's sitting on is not perfectly flat, you can screw one of these legs out and keep it from rocking. So we're going to take those back off, and I'm going to get my 2 coats of teak oil put on. And I just followed the directions on the can. I think you put your first coat on, and within 5 to 10 minutes you put your second coat on, and then you let it set for another 5 or 10 minutes, and then wipe off the excess. You don't wipe off the excess in between, but after the second coat you wipe off the excess. So we're getting our first coat on here now. Come back, put the second coat on. And now I'm going to come back with a rag and wipe off all the excess. And I believe I went through 2 rags. I did the whole thing with 1 rag, and I came back with another clean rag and got it done. And that's it, guys. That's the project. It came out really good. I love it. If you guys enjoyed this at all, I'd really appreciate a like on the video. A subscription would be fantastic, and we'll continue putting out videos. We build furniture every day for a living. Thanks for watching, and have a good day.